Mark Brnovich, the Attorney General of Arizona, has become a friend. We've never met in person. We've talked on the phone. We've talked on the radio. But we've hit it off. And the reason is he's not only a very decent guy, an honorable guy, he really is into this thing we call public service. And he's been most of his life. And I think he would be an absolutely fantastic senator. He's running in the Republican primary for the nomination to be a senator. And why did I endorse him? Because the guy's a fighter. Because he's not a one-issue guy. He's a conservative across the board. And he's done more than most as Attorney General of one state to fight the Biden administration, to fight what's going on in the criminal justice system, to fight what's going on the border, the lawlessness that's taking place. In other words, he's action-oriented. He's not all talk. He's not just talking about what he's going to do. And he's been a leader. And there's been great attorneys general throughout the country, but he's been a leader among them. And I think that he could actually get elected to the United States Senate and beat this guy, Mark Kelly, who's a nebbish, as we say. We Jews say, when it comes to Yiddish. But it is a pleasure to have Mark on the program, and I wanted to have him come on. Mark Brnovich, apparently, among other things, when your state asks for people to prove their citizenship when they vote, you've offended the United States Department of Justice, the Civil Rights Division, and apparently you have violated the Federal Civil Rights Act. What's going on there?
Great one. Thank you for having me on again, and thank you for the kind words. And, this is just the Exhibit A of the hypocrisy and just the craziness of the times we're living in. Arizona passed a common sense election integrity measure that basically says that if you want to vote in a presidential election, you have to prove you're a U.S. citizen, and that if you want to get a mail-in ballot, if you want to be in the permanent or the early voting list, you have to prove you're a citizen. The Biden administration threatened to sue us. I sent them a very pleasant response, basically saying, bring it on. I guess it's another round of Brnovich v. Biden. And so last week they sued us. And so they sued us, and they basically are saying that Arizona law that requires you to prove that you're a citizen if you want to vote in a presidential election or get a mail-in ballot is illegal. And that's the Biden administration's position. And so, Mark, I have said that the Biden administration, I don't mean to laugh. It's not funny. It's really crazy to think that they don't want Arizona to review citizenship at the polls, but meanwhile, their Department of Justice is running license plate at school board meetings, and they're letting literally 3 million people so far illegally enter our country. It's just absurd and crazy. I'm losing adjectives to describe what's going on in this country and just the shredding of the U.S. Constitution in the past year and a half.
Well, what are we to conclude from this? The borders are wide open. You're right on the border. You got God knows how many people coming into your state. They don't want proof of citizenship, so they apparently don't mind if illegal aliens vote or people who aren't citizens vote. Otherwise, what is their purpose here, Mark?
Well, I'm not sure if the AOCs, Joe Biden, if they appreciate that most of the people entering our country illegally right now are fleeing socialism and communism. So what makes you think that they're going to vote for Joe Biden? But in the Democrats' twisted view of the world, they don't believe in borders. They believe in this neo-Marxist utopia. And so they assume that if they can get a bunch of people coming in here and become dependent on the federal government, and that's why, as you know, they're trying to socialize the economy, they're trying to nationalize the election, and they're trying to get people dependent on the federal government because they think this is going to create the permanent socialist / Marxist, utopia that AOC and the hard left is envisioned in America.
How's that primary going down there right now or over there in Arizona?
Well, it's going well. I mean, look, I got great name ID. People know I'm a fighter. And, Mark, you mentioned a little bit at the beginning, I was the first person to sue Biden over the unconstitutional COVID vaccines. I had been involved in suing President Obama over EPA job-killing regulations, the waterways of the U.S., all the federal overreach. Heck, we sued President Biden over, the COVID bailout bill that said states couldn't cut taxes because we believe that was not only a violation of the Constitution, the anti-commandeering principles, But my goodness, why is it that Joe Biden wants to give everyone $1,600, but Arizona can't cut taxes by that amount? Because they want to make people dependent on the federal government. So the primary is going well, but and I mean, maybe your listeners know that the former president, endorsed somebody else in the primary, Peter Thiel's guy. And so at this point, it's a dogfight. It's neck and neck. But I've got the endorsement of folks like you. I've got great name ID. And most importantly, I've got a real record. I've won twice statewide. I got more votes than Sinema or McSally in 2018, even though I was outspent. And so people want a fighter. I mean, people want someone that can stand up, articulate, and defend our principles, not somebody that's going to be beholden to, Peter Thiel.
Yeah, this Peter Thiel is trying to buy the Republican Party. I mean, I don't like these billionaires trying to buy candidates and so forth, but he's already bought one. He's trying to buy another, and he's trying to buy a third. And I just don't believe in this outsized influence of one individual. It troubles me a lot. And what also troubles me is these opponents you're running against, particularly this one backed by Peter Thiel. He's not demonstrated an ability to fight this administration or fight this ideology, has he?
Well, that's the thing. As you know, talk is cheap, great one. And all these folks, that are saying stuff now, I'm like, my goodness, when I was involved in litigation against the Obama administration, where were they? When I literally was arguing at the U.S. Supreme Court last year, Brnovich v. DNC, stepping up, case named after me, that allows states to enact common sense election integrity measures. Not one of these folks lifted a finger, wrote an op-ed, filed a brief. I mean, heck, earlier this year when I was at the U.S. Supreme Court arguing against Biden's attempt to, rescind the public charge rule that President Trump enacted, not one of these folks stepped up. So, talk is cheap. And the thing is, if I can tell one quick anecdote, President Reagan, who I love, who did more for freedom all over this world than any other president the last 150 years. He used to say, if someone agrees with you 7 to 10 times, they're not your enemy, they're your friend. And I used to always tell people, the Brnovich caveat is, if someone agrees with you 10 to 10 times, they're not your friend, they're not your kids, they're a psychiatrist you're paying. But my daughter always tells me, what you need to tell people, one of my daughters says, no, Dad, you need to tell people 10 to 10 times, no one agrees with anyone, but they know where Brnovich stands. They know that you're a consistent constitutional.
That's right. All right, Mark, hold on. I want to carry you over the break. That's right. 10 out of 10 times they know where you stand. Absolutely. We'll be right back. Help the Attorney General of Arizona, Mark Brnovich. It's BRNO, because the name is spelled BRNOVICH. BRNO for Arizona, BRNO for AZ.com, BRNO for AZ.com. Geez, couldn't you make it easier than that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's funny because there is a Hannity variant. I call it the Hannity variant, where he would kind of make fun of the name of the website, and he said it's the worst website in politics. And so there is actually, if you type in Mark B, MARKB for AZ.com, you could also go to the website and help us out. So that's the Hannity variant, is the Mark B for AZ.
Well, I have to join the Hannity variant, I'm thinking. Mark B for AZ.com. That's much better. Sounds like a song, actually. All right.
I know.
Mr. Attorney General, this guy, Mark Kelly, the Democrat in the Senate, I mean, he never speaks. He wants to glide along. He is a radical. He has voted for everything Biden has wanted. Now he's trying to distance himself from Biden. Arizona used to really elect solid conservatives who stood for things, who were standouts, agree with them or not. You've got two, but particularly this guy, Kelly, one of the least effective senators in the United States Senate. Isn't that true?
Yes, absolutely. I tell folks all the time that we need a senator in Arizona that represents Arizona values and those traditional, limited government, constitutional conservative values. And we have candidates that stand up and articulate them. We win. And I'm living proof of it. As I said, in 2018, I got more votes than Kirsten Sinema, who was on the ballot at the same time, even though I was outspent by a ton. And I remind folks all the time, and people say this, Mark Kelly votes with Chuck Schumer 93% of the time. But what I love to point out is that he votes with Bernie Sanders 9 out of 10 times. And even Bernie's wife doesn't agree with Bernie 9 out of 10 times. I mean, that's how radical he is. I mean, he is a hardcore lefty senator. It's completely out of touch with Arizona. But, you know, he is a former astronaut. I know we all joke about his ideas being from outer space. But that's the thing, is that you need someone that can actually stand up at their core, understands conservative principles, conservative values, and can take it to him. Because, you know, he's going to be a tough candidate, even though he hasn't done anything except for vote with Chuck Schumer and Bernie Sanders. But you're going to have a principled Arizonan running against him. And, you know, I don't like politics, but that's why I'm running, because I care about our state. I care about our country.
Mm-hmm. Now, in Arizona, did you guys suspend the capital punishment for a period of time?
No, we didn't. But I actually, you know, I started my career as a gang prosecutor, and I believe very strongly that those who commit the ultimate crime get the ultimate punishment. And I've actually been on 60 Minutes talking about the death penalty, and I made a commitment, a promise to victims that I would make sure justice was done. And just recently, we executed an individual here in Arizona that our office was in charge not only of prosecuting, but executing a guy, a degenerate killer, Mark, that was a pedophile, and then he had killed and raped and killed a girl here, and it took 40 years. Finally, as AG, we made sure that justice was done, and he was just executed a couple of weeks ago. And so that's the second execution since I've been AG.
40 years?
There was. Oh, it's terrible. Anyone, the left has waged a guerrilla war against the justice system, and especially the death penalty. And so they've created all these problems that make it difficult for us to execute people, like, for example, getting drugs, and then they complain about the process. And then they delay it. They hope to run out the clock, all these endless appeals. And meanwhile, these poor victims, Debbie Carlson, who was Vicki Lynn's mom, I have stood with her, Mark. I have cried with her at hearings. I was there with her the day of the execution, and she was so thankful because justice was finally done. And folks, the left doesn't understand this, is that there are people that commit the ultimate crimes that are so incorrigible that they deserve the ultimate punishment. It's ultimately the way society defends itself.
What are you guys doing, or what are you doing, about the issue of abortion now since the Dobbs decision?
Well, we just filed in court today, we filed a motion to overturn an injunction that had been in place since Roe, because our office has taken the position, which not every elected official agrees with, but we have taken the position that in 1977, the legislature reenacted a law, 13-3603, that says all abortions are illegal in Arizona except to save the life of the mother. That's what our representatives enacted, and that's what I believe I have an obligation to defend in court. So we have asked the court, literally today, just today, filed paperwork to have them reinstate and confirm that that is the state of law in Arizona.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. You want to be a senator. Yeah. This issue of... No, I'm sorry. I said this from my early days as a prosecutor, that every society ultimately gets treated or judged by how it treats the least vulnerable or those that can't protect themselves. And that's so going, whether it was prosecuting gangs or making sure degenerate killers get executed or protecting the unborn, I will always err on the side of the most vulnerable and protecting life. Let me ask you about energy. I mean, it's obvious this administration rejects fossil fuels. It's obvious this administration is pretending it can't do anything about the price of fuel and inflation and all the rest of it. What is your economic view? Well,
when the Soviet Union collapsed, communism didn't die. All those people just ended up in the environmental movement. Because let's not kid ourselves. The environmental movement is all about controlling our lives. And I actually wrote an op-ed in 2004 when I was working at the Goldwater Institute about energy pricing, and I advocated back then that we should eliminate the federal gas tax because it's no longer used to fund the interstate highway system. It's used to fund bridges to nowhere or, bike paths in Vermont. That all these environmental regulations that raise the price of gas, and then you combine with that a federal government that's hostile to drilling and exploration, you end up with less supply of something, shortages, and an increased cost. And the price of oil, the price of gas affects everything, from delivering foods, to the grocery stores, which affects the price of groceries, which, other goods like, that are made out of oil and oil byproducts, plastics and everything. So it has an incredible effect on the economy. So when Joe Biden, for example, just this year cancels offshore auction or drilling leases, auctions for drilling leases offshore, that means we have less supply. I've opposed him when he canceled the Keystone Pipeline and other pipeline projects, because that means we have less, oil coming into our country. When the EPA tries to promulgate not only job-killing regulations, but rules that make it harder to refine, crude oil, that has an impact on all of us. And I was very proud to have joined the West Virginia versus EPA case where you had the Biden administration, or excuse me, Obama actually that did it, that they try to impose all these carbon rules and all these things that are designed to basically be a war on fossil fuels. And all of us are paying the price at not only the gas pump, but at the grocery store because of these far left policies that, envision some green agenda, being dictated from the federal government to all the rest of us. And we're paying the cost.
So you worked at the Goldwater Institute, which is, as it sounds, a conservative/libertarian institute, correct?
Yes. I was a big believer in property rights. I mean, that my parents lived through World War II. They lived in a communist country in former Yugoslavia. And so when your family has not just studied history but lived it, you understand how precious freedom is, how any government that's big enough to give you everything is big enough to take it away. And so when I was at Goldwater, I was a big advocate of property rights and how important, federalism is. I've always talked about, faith, federalism, and freedom. That's what this country's all about, and that's what I've been about my entire life.
Well, I'm proud to be a supporter of yours, and feel free to make that public anywhere you can if it doesn't hurt you, Mark.
You're the best, brother.
And we really appreciate you. But you'd be a real firebrand in the Senate. It's Mark Brnovich, if you want to help, particularly if you're in Arizona. But you can use your financial support. It's Mark B for AZ.com. Mark B, just like it sounds, for AZ.com. All right, sir. You take care of yourself.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. God bless.
Thanks.